Hey everybody, today I'm gonna try to talk about sacrifices and see if I can actually stay on point. I already tried to write this down, it did not work because I kept going off on tangents. Let's see if I can do it this time. So I'm gonna talk over this older piece of work because the only thing I have to work on currently is the same thing I was working on last time, and I don't really want to make you watch me ink that while I'm talking about something else. Maybe the next episode will be all right. But here we go. So first thing is this piece here is just like a bit of proof of concept or just concept art for a story idea that I've got sitting on a shelf in it's a I don't even have a title for it. The working title is Teen Thulu, and it's this kind of Stranger Things meets what was the name of that show? Veronica Mars. Sort of a Stranger Things meets Veronica Mars, or just like Veronica Mars with like a supernatural kind of bend to it. Um, Very Lovecraftian in a lot of ways. Anyway, so what I wanted to talk about today was sacrifice, and what I'm getting at is just like the things we sacrifice as artists. And if you can hear that, my cat is behind me clicking at me. Um, the the various forms of things that we kind of give up in pursuit of this trail we're walking. The the financial, the social, the fun things, and some of the things I've sacrificed in pursuit of this, and ultimately, that probably led to my big burnout slash artist block slash walk away from the art world for 5 years or whatever, because the sacrifices were well, I mean, the thing about sacrifice is it worth it? You sacrifice in hopes of getting something out of it. You lay your offering on the altar, and you hope that you get the thing out of it that you're wanting to get out of it. So what I put on the altar was friendships, financial stability, hanging out with friends and family and things like that. There'd be multiple times where I would be invited to go hang out with my buddies. We had a friend group of people that we went to college with that lived close to us when we were living in Orlando, and they were. I don't want to say they had given up on the dream of being art, because we all went to the same school, but they were more of the, hey, you know what? I've got a job. I'm paying my bills, and I don't really need to devote everything I have to trying to make this thing happen, because most of us are working in coffee shops anyway. So what's the point, right? But that wasn't me. I was always the guy who was, you know, you know, I still believe in this rock and roll is going to save my soul kind of thing. It's this. This is the thing that I want more than anything, and this is the thing I've always wanted more than anything. And the more than anything is the operative word there. So I'd be invited to go hang out with friends on a day off, and I'd say no, I have to get work done, and it was just so I could work on a comic, or at the time we were working on this animated movie that was absolutely terrible, and it will never see the light of day, God willing. But we were. I was working full time at a restaurant, and I'd work there, and then I'd come home and I'd get right on the computer and go back to work. But this idea of just saying, no, I don't want to go hang out with you guys at the movies tonight, or no, I don't want to go to the Drunken Monkey coffee shop and hang out because this is my day off and this is the only chance I'm going to get to draw this comic, or I got to get this done, or I want to get this done. I'm trying to make this happen. And and eventually what would happen is you'd stop getting invited. They'd be like, he's gonna say no anyway. So what's the point? So you'd stop getting invited, and then it'd turn into a few months, and you wouldn't see your friends, and there would be nothing wrong. Like, it's not like you guys would be not cool or anything, but the frequency would be down, and you'd be like, before you know it, you hadn't seen any of your people in like 6 months, because all you're doing is going to work and coming home and drawing, and it wears on you. And then well, it doesn't wear on you. Well, you think you're doing fine, you think you're okay, and then one day you turn around and you're like, where are all the people in my life? Oh, they moved because you were busy, and they all moved. You take for granted these people in your life. You think they're always going to be there, and then you turn around and they're not there anymore, and you're like, oh, I'll go see them tomorrow or whatever, and then something happens, and they've moved away, or you're an adult, so life happens. When you're an adult, opportunities come up, jobs come up, things happen, and then you move, or you get far away. You think you're always going to be with these people, and then you're not, because you know life happens. And life happens, it seems, a lot more to our generation than maybe our parents' generation. Our parents probably got to just kind of stay where they were in a way that a lot of us didn't. A lot of us, especially if you wanted a specific kind of job. I mean, I grew up in the South. I grew up in a small town. And when I say small town, most people think small town is like a million people is a small town to some people. No, for me, a small town was 2,500 people. It was this town called Bluntstown in North Florida. And it was, at the time that I moved there, the biggest place I'd ever lived, because before that we lived in an even smaller town. It's just 8 miles into the woods in the middle of freaking nowhere. But anyway, my original point was, I was from this small town, and people didn't leave that town. They just kind of stayed there, and the friends they had at 30 or 40 or whatever were the friends they had at 16. The people that they knew were the people that they grew up with. And as I'm older, I am jealous of that in a way that maybe I wasn't as a teenager. When I was a kid, I just wanted out of the town. And in a lot of ways, I'm glad I never went back, because there's certain aspects of that life and culture that I don't mesh with anymore. So there's good there, but there's also a lot of friends from high school that I only see every few years. So what happened was, my friend group were people I went to college with. Uh, they lived close to us, and then one day they didn't, and it barely changed anything in my life because I wasn't seeing them every day anyway. But what would happen is I'd be like, man, I haven't seen John in a while, and I'd want to go see him. And well, now he's gone, so now I can't. And we had some of the best times hanging out. And I miss that. I miss that a lot. Uh, Me and John had a movie night for a little while. We went out of our way to. There was a time where we would make time. It didn't last long, but for a few months there, we were all working on the same project. So the project that we were all working on, the horrible movie that will never see the light of day, facilitated us seeing each other on a pretty regular basis. So that was one good thing about it. And then after that project was over and we were all very, very glad it was out of our lives, we took like small break. And me and John used to watch a movie like I had like a very specific um, night every week off. So I would go over there and we watch a movie together. We watched a movie called. It was like we would take turns. Every every week we would like shift it. I was okay. This is a John week. This is a Hobbs week. Um, so one of the movies that I picked was a movie called Ink, which is this indie movie from 2008 that is, to me, it's like aesthetically just gorgeous, and it's about this uh, big nosed goblin guy who kidnaps this girl, and he's trying to take her to these like dream demons to, I don't know what they want, but I can't remember what they want. The plot is kind of all over the place, and it's a little hard to kind of follow. But he has a change of heart along the way, and before it's over with, he starts protecting the girl from these demonic forces. And it's an indie movie. It's this beautiful, stylistic. To me, it's a masterpiece. Um, so that and then one of the movies that he had us watch was the Jim Carrey Christmas Carol, which to this day I'm a massive fan of that movie. I think it's just the right kind of creepy. I think the 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 uncanny valleyness that era of 3D had, I think it worked perfectly to make that movie. I think it worked in favor of that movie in a way that it did not work in favor of something like Polar Express or Monster House. Well, yeah, it was okay in Monster House, but I think the Uncanny Valley really did that movie a service in a way that it doesn't in other movies. But I'm getting off track because that's what I do. So we're talking about sacrifice, and the thing is, I sacrifice time with friends to draw comics, to work on animation and things like that. I put off hanging out with them, and now they live in Portland, I think, certainly up there in the Pacific Northwest, and I do not see them anymore. That is out of the question because I live in Lake Worth, Florida, which is literally the polar opposite as far as the USA goes. I am in the southernmost east corner of the country, and they are in the northernmost west corner of the country. So it's kind of funny that way. Uh, I did speak to John maybe like 6 months ago through Skype, and that was a lot of fun. But we don't talk very much anymore. We just kind of interact variously on Facebook and whatnot. Just this kind of, oh hey, I remember you. That's a funny thing you shared, that kind of thing, which is kind of the plight of the millennial in a lot of ways. We're not we don't hang out or whatever, but we talk on Facebook. So like, have you seen blah blah blah? Have you seen this guy lately? Nah, I don't really talk. I haven't talked to him on the phone. I haven't seen him in ages. But I like stuff on Facebook. That's what we do. That's that's a thing that our generation deals with that I don't think my parents' generation had to deal with. And you can see it like when I go home. I go like to my in laws for the holidays. I see them more than I see my own family. So it's just what ends up happening is it's me and my wife, to late 30s and early 40s somethings, with a little 5-year old kid and a room full of boomers, and they are so sociable with one another. It's the one thing that they have over us, is they still socialize in a way that I don't think my generation does as well as maybe we should. So yeah, that's kind of the big sacrifice that I really hate, that I had to give up for this pursuit. And it's, I think the all right, well, first of all, yeah, I'm rambling. I'm sorry. That's what I do. But the catalyst, honestly, for this talk or this episode or whatever you want to call it for this subject, was I saw a reel on Instagram, and it was this young female artist, and she said it was like one of those what do you like, recycled audio reels, and it was this young female artist who was like, the joke was something like. I'm an artist. I don't have friends. So, it was, I think it was something like, what, you know, when are you going to hang out with your friends or whatever? And it was just like, silly rabbit. I'm an artist. I don't have friends. And I guess my whole point in what I'm saying now is to any young artists who are listening to this, if there's anything I can give you as far as advice goes, is do not make that sacrifice. It is not worth it. Keep your friends. Um, Make it happen. If you have to Skype with them every day or whatever, I would. God, at the end of the day, I think that's what I want more than anything out of what I'm doing here. Like, whenever I was in my why am I doing this phase, as I spoke to on another episode of this, back then I think what I really wanted, I just wanted to, more than anything, what I wanted was to escape from the jobs that I was doing. I wanted out of what I was doing. What I was doing then was I was working at a grocery store, and I was having to put so much time into something I hated. I had to, and I had all this work that I had to get done at, for the jobs I was doing, the comic jobs I was doing, and then I they wouldn't pay enough, so I'd still have to go work at like Publix. Publix is a grocery store in Florida, but so I'd have to do that, and before that I was having to work at restaurants and all these other things. So what I wanted more than anything out of art was it was my escape. In my mind, it was the thing that was going to get me out of the jobs I hated, and I was miserable at these jobs. Just I was almost foaming at the mouth, miserable at going these jobs. You'd wake up some mornings and you'd be like, I can't fathom doing this for another few hours when all I want to do is draw this comic. And it's paying, but it's not paying enough. And it was this thing that was driving me crazy. And then, so like back then, the why was it was my escape. I wanted out of the menial labor job that I was doing, and it was the way I thought, and that's what I wanted more than anything. And then I got to quit those jobs because my life changed once I had a kid. Um, I was able to. Well, it took a little longer. I kept working at Publix for a long time after he was born, but once COVID hit, we had to take him out of daycare, and you might not like this, but I really couldn't stand working retail during the pandemic. The people were, uh, they were so hard to deal with. They were losing their minds, getting mad over random stupid stuff. We didn't know. Um, we didn't know what was happening. We didn't know if it was gonna, if this was like some biblical plague coming down, or if this was a flu or whatever. This was the beginning of it. So you'd be hearing about all these these people dying or whatever, and what would happen is old people would come in just coughing and spraying their germs everywhere, refusing to wear masks, and like I literally had like an old lady come up and ask me a question and cough in my face to the point where I felt the mist on my face, and I lost it, but not like outwardly. I just kind of, I did my job, and then I like went into the cooler where I was working because I was working the dairy section, and I just had this little breakdown. It only lasted about 45 seconds, but it was enough. And then the next day, I come home and I tell my wife about it, and she was also she was working from home at the time because she was working in the office, and the office was like, yeah, you guys work from home. It's the pandemic. So I remember one day just feeling like I was gonna explode, like almost tears in my eyes, telling my wife I couldn't do this anymore. And I had been miserable at that job for a very long time. Like, in a way, like long before the pandemic, I was miserable at that job. So this was not like some new thing that was brought on by the pandemic, but the pandemic was It was, I don't know, it was like, this has now become hard in a way that you can't fathom. It was already hard. Now it's so much harder. And so me and my wife had a conversation, and we were already talking about taking my son out of daycare. So she's like, "Yeah, let's. You should quit your job. We can handle it." And it was scary, but we were able to do it. And I called them up that morning, and I quit right then. No notice, no 2 weeks, nothing. And it was, I don't know if it might have been a dick move. Some people would call it a dick move. I certainly would call it a dick move if I was there and I got that call from another coworker. But it was also because I had quit Publix before. I worked there for almost 10 years, and I had quit before to pursue art. Um, at another point, this was before my son was born. My wife was also making really good money at another job, and so I was able to work freelance for a little while, doing various animation projects and things like that. And so I had already played this game before. I had quit before and came back. There were no less than 3 times that I quit Publix and came back, and it was every time it was this sort of walk of shame coming back. And so this time I was like, I'm never doing this again. In my mind, there was a sort of, if I don't quit, I'll never quit. And I always wanted to quit. The goal was never to work there until I retired. It was just to work there until I got the job I wanted. And so that's what I did. I quit cold turkey, or no notice or anything, specifically because I didn't want to have the ability to come back. It was a deliberate burning of a bridge. Okay, so I found my train of thought. The thing I was saying is, more than anything, what I wanted was to escape my crappy job, and that's why that was my main driving force for drawing, for what I was doing, and that has shifted. I think now more than anything, the driving force for what I'm doing is I want to connect with people. I want to connect with other artists. I want to connect with readers. I want friends. I don't have friends. And a lot of that is because I've made the sacrifices over the years. And, those chickens have come home to roost, if you will. I don't have any friends. And when I say I don't have any friends, it doesn't mean that I don't have any friends in the sense that there's no one that I would call a friend. There's plenty of people that I would call a friend, but there are no people that I hang out with that I see on a regular basis or even speak to on a regular basis. The most I do is I do various like direct messages with people on Instagram and Facebook. I have one guy that I worked with at a sign shop that is what I would consider to be my best friend within like 500 miles of where I live. And he's a guy I've never hung out with him in any place other than work, but me and him got along so damn well. He was like my little brother in so many ways, and we still like share stupid reels and whatnot, videos with each other on Instagram. That is the majority of our relationship. I'd love to spend some time with him, but it's just about making time to do it. And he lives about an hour and a half away now because we moved, because that is also a thing. That was a theme that I was getting at. We moved. We always move, or somebody always moves. Every time I'm about to get a friend of some sort, or I make a connection with someone, I'm like, oh, this is cool. Inevitably, they or we are about to move. It happens every time. But anyway, my original point before I got off on that really long tangent about the job I used to hate was the reason that I wanted, my reason for doing what I was doing. My why was specifically to get out of the crappy job. Now that I'm out of the crappy job, I had to find my new why. And my new why has you know, it took a while to find it. It now that I'm, back to working from home, or drawing during the day, and then, or whatever. And now my why is having friends, um, because that was something I sacrificed in pursuit of this goal. The the um, it's weird too because there'd be when I was working with I'm gonna do a name check here. When I was working with Martin Dunn on Joshua Black, he's one of the guys I consider one of my best friends, but he's also a guy that moved away. He moved to Ohio, and I was in Florida, and we were both Florida guys, but he moved to Ohio, and I moved to South Florida before he moved to Ohio, I think. But either way, we were living about 3 hours away from each other, so it was not like we could go see each other every day anyway. But he he's one of the guys I consider friend. Like we were when we were working on Joshua Black together, we were talking pretty regularly. Maybe 3 or 4 times a week. You pick up the phone and we just inevitably what would have we'd call specifically for like a question about the script or just a story idea or whatever. But what inevitably would just end up happening is me and him would just end up shooting the shit for 30 minutes to an hour or whatever. And um I started to avoid that, and I don't know if it is because I am antisocial in a way, not in a mean way, but just in a what how do I say it? I devour a lot of audio, like audio books, podcasts, people talking in various forms, YouTube video essays, lectures, things like that. I am a person who listens to people talk while I draw. And so what would end up happening is I'd be like, oh, I'm kind of in the mood to listen to this, this lecture or whatever. And so I'd get a call and I'd be like, I'm trying to listen to this thing and I don't want to talk right now or whatever. And so what would happen is I'd put that off. And it's really dumb when you think about it, right? Because you could just, it's not like I'm not going to be able to put that on, you know, tomorrow or the next day or whatever. But it was just this weird sort of, I don't feel like talking to anyone right now. And it wasn't Martin. It wasn't Martin by any means. It was me. I just didn't feel like talking to people. I wanted to, you know, just close off in my own bubble, listen to things I wanted to listen to and work. But I didn't feel like talking to people. And now I would love nothing more than to talk to people. Like if this if this gets if this becomes the thing I want it to become, eventually these I'm gonna stop doing these and they're just gonna turn into me and some other artist talking about making comics instead of me just rambling like this is some sort of audio journal confessional thing. Um because that's what I want. That's my why now. My why is to make friends and connections with people. And I guess that's what happens when you get older. It, it's weird. My wife and I joke. We're we're spiritual people. We believe in manifesting and things like that. And a long time ago, we kind of told ourselves our mantra, whatever you want to call it, was just you and me versus the world. And we even made that a theme of our comic book. Oops. It was one of the big themes of that comic is the two friends in that are they say you and me versus the world, and then they fist bump and it's like this big explosion or whatever. This is a really dumb fun comic, but we put that out into the world, and I feel like sometimes the universe listened and was like, yes, it is you and her versus the world, and it is only you and her versus the world. So you don't get support systems, you don't get friends, you don't get family that can help you when you need help. It's just you and her versus the world. And you know what? I wouldn't trade her for anything at all. She's the best thing that's ever happened to me. But You know, we don't have help. We don't. Our family, the closest family, is 4 hours away, and even when they were close by, their health made it where they couldn't help. Um, so there's no support system for us. Like, there's no calling up the babysitter or whatever. My wife and I have never had a night where the kid was not with us, in some way, shape, or form. Like, he's in the house or whatever, but we've never had like, um, you know, our sons at like with grandparents, and so it's just me and her, and that's never happened. The closest thing we've ever had to something like that is through various autism support groups or whatever. They'd have like what they call like kids night out or parents night out, where they'll watch your kid for like 3 hours on a Saturday night or something, and you can have a date night. But uh, my original point is just it's just me and her versus the world in a lot of ways, and so I feel like we kind of manifested that reality in a way that we wish we didn't now. I don't know how true that is, but like I said, it's something, our spiritual beliefs kind of align with that idea. Um, so now my why is having friends and a community of artists that I can talk to, and just I don't know, just hang out with people, just know people. I miss people. I miss friends. I miss talking to other artists about this stuff. Um, it's just me in this room these days, and it's been that way for well over a year now because I quit my job at the sign shop, so my son could start going to ABA therapy every day. So it's just that's that. Um, so I guess the other like various forms of sacrifice I could talk about, just to kind of put a button on this whole thing, because I've kind of rambled and lost my train of thought. And that's what I do, right? I don't stick on a train of thought. If you're listening to me, you're listening because um one, you like listening to audio while you work, or you're one of these people that just you can relate. Maybe you're like me. Um, Maybe you're just listening to another damaged soul, and you're like, "Oh, I am just as damaged." And if that's the case, please, you know, comments down below that I'm not alone in this world, and oh hey, someone like me. Um, so getting back to the other forms of sacrifice, and the thing I would tell that young artist not to to sacrifice the friends. Don't sacrifice the people in your life. Not for this. This isn't worth it, because once you get it, you're gonna be like, this is gonna get tiring. You're gonna get tired of this. It's gonna be a job in a way that you might not think it is, because maybe all you're doing is drawing the stuff you want to draw. But if you do this for a living, then there's gonna be times when you don't want to draw the thing you have to. A panel will be like, you know, dinner party scene, and the last thing you want to draw is a bunch of old people at a dinner table, but that might be what you have to draw. And so this is going to turn into a job. Um, just to the other things I would say, the other sacrifices I made, financial. Financial in the way that I borrowed a lot of money to go to a college that I didn't need to go to. Um, I went to animation school at the Art Institute of Fort Lauderdale. I did not need to do that for what I wanted to do. I don't regret it, in the sense that it's where I met my wife. I wouldn't have my family without it. But it put me in debt. It put me in a lot of debt, and it's not even for something that I wanted to do. I went to school for animation. All I ever wanted to do was draw comics, but uh, there was no. I mean, there was one comic school at the time. I didn't know about SCAD, but I knew about the Kubert school. But I didn't go to the Kubert school. I didn't think I could get in, and maybe I couldn't have. I don't know. I wasn't that good back then. But so what happened was long story short, I went to a school that I didn't necessarily want to go to, but it was sort of like I was sort of pushed into it by the people around me. They were like, "This is probably the best thing that's ever going to happen to you." And I I had left home at 17 due to various issues with my parents and whatnot. So I wasn't homeless because I was living with a friend's aunt and uncle at the time, and they had graciously taken me in. It was, I'm very blessed for that. Uh, but they were telling me this is probably a good thing. This is probably the best thing that's gonna happen to you. Otherwise, you're gonna be stuck here and in this little podunk town doing everything that we do. My brother was like, if you stay here, you're just gonna end up working in a sawmill. And other people were like, if you stay here, you're gonna just keep working at a subway, or maybe you'll, go to the military. And if I had went to the military after high school, I would have ended up in Afghanistan because 9/11 happened very shortly after I graduated. So I graduated in 2001. So September was just around the corner. Anyway, so yeah, I made a financial sacrifice. I put myself in major amounts of debt for art, for the prospect of a career in art, which is something I would always advise a young person against. Do not go to art school. You don't need to, unless you're going to like one of the absolute best art schools in the world. Like the school Proco went to, and you're trying to learn how to be an incredible pencil artist, or a life you know um, uh, like an anatomist artist or something like Stan Prokopinko. He went to, I don't know the name of the school, but he went to a guy with Watts Atelier is the name of the artist. And these are guys on YouTube that are like the absolute best of the best when it comes to anatomy and life drawing and things like that. Unless you're going to something like that, or if you want to be an animator, you're going to like, um, you know, uh, you know, uh, Cal Arts specifically for anime, because that's where all the Disney guys went. They all went to Cal Arts, or if you want to go to the best of the best animation schools in the world, you want to go to like Goblin. So, but like if you're not going to something like that, like some of the best, don't go. Or otherwise, just go to like community school and just get like basic, BFA in fine arts or something, because these degrees, these multi-thousand-dollar degrees, they're not worth the paper they're printed on. You can learn everything you need to learn with online courses now. If you got the drive, you can learn how to be a great animator on YouTube alone. So don't make that sacrifice. Don't make the financial one. And I guess the other sacrifice I would make financially is I never worked full time. I always worked like this one's kind of going in the opposite direction, right? This is more of a, if I was if I had devoted less to art, then I would have probably ended up working full time and making way more money and probably building a decent retirement and things like that. But I wouldn't be any happier, so I don't know if I'd call that a sacrifice. Maybe that was just a move I made. But one thing I never did was I never worked. I was never work. Well, not never, but for a long time, I wasn't working full time. I was working like 35 hours a week at all my jobs, because I was trying to draw comics on the side. So don't think for a second I wasn't working full time. It's just the other half of my hours were spent drawing comics, which is work as well, especially when it's something you don't necessarily feel like doing. Or like it's one of those dinner table scenes. You know what I'm saying? So like one of the big deals there was back in those days I was working something close to 80 hours a week, but only getting paid for 35 of them because the comic art wasn't paying anything at the time. But I feel like I've rambled enough and I've made my point. So I'll probably end up editing this bit of audio quite a bit just to try to give some semblance of a point to it. There you go. So, as usual, check out my webcomic, A Thousand Hells. It's on Webtoon, Tapas, and Blocktoon. It is, you can check out my Instagram. Hobbs Makes Comics is what I'm called there, or I'm sure if you just write Jeramy Hobbs into the search engine, you'll find me. It's Jeremy with an A, Jeramy. I've never found another one of those. Good luck if you have. Um, and like I said, if you want to be a bro, check out my Supernatural webcomic or Supernatural fan comic on Tumblr. When you are done, spn.tumblr.com. And all the best.